Chapter 4.5, Equations of Parallel and Perpendicular Lines. Alright, so for this chapter, let's start off with a review of how to get the slope of a line. The slope of a line. First of all, in case you forgot, the slope is a measure of the steepness of a line. It's measuring how steep the line is. Like imagine if you're climbing a mountain. Okay, let's say you're climbing this mountain right here, going from right to left, or going down from left to right. It doesn't matter for this example. This mountain is very steep. It's going to be very hard to climb because it's at a real high inclination, whereas this one is pretty flat or closer to being flat, so it's not that steep. All right, so the slope is measuring how steep the line is. Okay, now you always look at the line from left to right, If the line is going up from left to right, just like you read a sentence from left to right, look at the line from left to right. If it's going up, the slope is going to be positive. If it's going down, the slope is going to be negative. If it's going up from left to right, the slope is going to be positive. If it's going down from left to right, the slope is going to be negative. Okay, now right here I put the equation to find the slope of a line. To be honest, you're not going to need, for today, you're not going to need this. You should know it, or it should ring a bell. You know, it's okay if you kind of forgot it, but it should ring a bell. You're not going to use this part today, but you do need to know how to get the rise over the run. Alright, the rise over the run. Alright, which I'll demonstrate right now if you forgot. To get the slope of a line, all you got to do is pick 2 points, any 2 points on the line. Any 2 points that you could see clearly where they land on. So on this line, we already got these 2 points that are labeled. I could have also used this point right here if I wanted to, because I could see clearly where it lands. Alright, so the slope is going to be positive, and then I got to get the rise over the run. The rise is the distance going up and down. Okay, so the rise, actually let me draw it like this. The rise going like this would be a distance of 1. And the rise going like this, we're going from this point to this point. Going up, it's a distance of 1, and going horizontal would be a distance of 3. So it's the rise on the top and the run on the bottom. So the slope of this line would be positive 1 over 3. Positive 1 over 3. And the slope is represented by the letter M. So that means that the slope equals 1 over 3. Actually, it's usually a letter M like that. Whatever, small detail. Alright, so look at this one. In this one, the line is going down, so automatically my slope is going to be negative. Okay, we already got 2 points labeled on there. I could have also used this point right here if I wanted to. Alright, so first of all, notice that this point is right in between -2 and -4. So it's at -3. Alright, so the distance going up, the vertical distance, I should say, the vertical distance is 3, and the horizontal distance, okay, is 8. Alright, from here to here the distance is 8 because you're going from 0 to -8, and from here to here the distance is 3 because you're going from 0 to -3. Alright, so the rise is 3 and the run is 8, and that's my slope. Alright, I'm going to do these 2 examples as well, but before I do them, let me just explain this in Spanish, and I'll do these examples in Spanish, but I'm going to be doing the same thing I did here, okay? En español, esta palabra slope lo deben recordar de álgebra, okay? En español, el pendiente se le dice, pero yo voy a usar la palabra en inglés, slope, porque así es como siempre lo van a ver. Pero el slope o el pendiente es la medida de la inclinación de una línea. Okay, así que es un número que está midiendo la inclinación de una línea. La línea se mira de izquierda a derecha. De izquierda a derecha. Si va para arriba la línea, el slope va a ser un número positivo. Si va para abajo de izquierda a derecha, el slope va a ser un número negativo. Así que este va para arriba de izquierda a derecha. Así que el slope va a ser positivo. Y este va para abajo de izquierda a derecha, así que el slope va a ser negativo. ¿Ok? Para encontrar el slope, tienen que coger 2 puntos, cualquiera 2 puntos, todo te va a dar la misma respuesta. 2 puntos que están en la línea. Tienen que coger 2 puntos que se pueden ver exactamente donde quedan. Ok, en este caso, en esta línea ya tengo 2 puntos ahí marcados. También podía haber usado este punto aquí porque puedo ver exactamente dónde cae. Ok, pero vamos a usar estos 2 puntos. Excuse me. Ok, así que primero voy a coger el rise. El rise, eso es la distancia vertical. Estamos calculando la distancia vertical y horizontal de un punto al otro. Así que la distancia vertical sería 2. Oh, I'm sorry. It's late. I got confused. La distancia sería 4. Disculpa. Hay 4. Porque esto va desde 0 a negativo 4. Ok. Y esta distancia horizontal sería 6. 6. Porque esto es de aquí hasta aquí es 2, 4, 6. Ok. Así que el slope en este caso va a ser positivo 4 sobre 6. Pero el slope, la fracción esa siempre se tiene que simplificar. Así que puedo dividir arriba y abajo por 2. Así que el slope sería 2 sobre 3. You always got to simplify the fraction if it could be simplified. And so since I could divide the top and the bottom by 2, my slope is 2 over 3. Okay, now let's look at this one. Okay, en esta es la misma cosa. El slope va para abajo de izquierda a derecha. Así que va a ser negativo. Ok, escojo cualquier 2 puntos que se pueden ver exactamente donde cae. Ya tengo esos 2 puntos. También podía haber usado este punto aquí. Ok, así que la distancia vertical, el rise, sería 6. Sorry. 6. Y horizontal sería 4. Porque esto es 0, 2 y 4. Así que el slope sería negativo 6 sobre 4 y otra vez tengo que simplificar eso. I gotta simplify that. Divido arriba y abajo por 2 y me da negativo 3 sobre 2. Sería el slope. Okay. Okay, now that we reviewed how to get the slope of a line, let's start the actual lesson. Alright, the first thing we gotta go over is that parallel lines will always have the same slope no matter what. Always. Alright, if two lines are parallel, their slopes have to be the same, no exceptions. Okay, it makes sense because if two lines are parallel, that means their steepness has to be exactly the same. So they're gonna have the same slope. Alright, so here we got two lines. Let me show you, let's test out this theory to see that it works, alright? We already have 2 points picked out there. So if we look at it from left to right, the lines are both going up. Alright, the rise for this one would be 2 and the run is 1. Alright, so the slope of the blue line is positive 2 over 1, which equals positive 2. Okay, and for the red line, if we look at these 2 points, the rise is 2 and the run is 1. So the slope of the red line is also 2 over 1, which equals 2. Alright, they have the same slope. Why? Because they're parallel. Let's look at this example. Alright, let me pick out 2 points on this line right here. I could use this point right here as well as this point right here. Okay, so the line is going down from left to right, so the slope has to be negative. Okay, the rise is 1, 2, 3, and the run is 1, 2. So the slope of this line right here is negative 3 over 2. Let's look at this one. Alright, I could use this point right here as well as this point right here. Okay, the rise is going to be 1, 2, 3, and the run is 1, 2. And it's going down, so it has to be negative. So the slope is also negative 3 over 2. Alright, so they both have the same slope. En español, las líneas paralelas tienen que tener siempre el mismo slope. ¿Ok? Las líneas paralelas siempre tienen que tener el mismo slope. ¿Ok? Estas dos líneas tenían el mismo slope, que es 2 sobre 1, que es equivalente a 2. Y estas dos líneas tenían el mismo slope, que era negativo 3 sobre 2. ¿ok? Así que si las líneas son paralelas, tienen siempre que tener el mismo slope. Okay, now, right here we have 3 ways that you could write the equation of a straight line. All right, 3 different ways that you could write the equation of a straight line on a graph. Okay, don't panic looking at all this. I know it looks complicated. Don't panic. All right, you should have seen them before in Algebra 1. If you don't remember all of this, that's totally okay and normal. Okay, now, out of all these 3, the main one that you should remember at least a little bit, if not totally, is this one right here, because it's the one that we end up using the most. The slope-intercept form. All right, this one is really important, and you should remember it. Y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope. You always put the slope right there, and b is the y-intercept. If you forgot what the y-intercept is, the y-intercept is when you have a straight line, like, it's the number that on the y-axis where the line is crossing the y-axis, the number that's there. In other words, when x is 0, what is y? That's the y-intercept. Okay? This is the one that you should remember the most. We're going to use it right now. And we're also going to use this one. If you're not too familiar with this one, that's totally okay. Alright? All you got to know is this. Alright? This is the point slope form. Okay, m is the slope, so you still put the slope right there. And x1 and y1 is just a point that's on the line, a point that's on the line. I'll show you what I mean in a second, alright? But these are the only 2 that we're going to use today, okay? Let me just say that real quick in Spanish. Estos son 3 formas de escribir una ecuación para una línea. 3 formas de escribir la ecuación de una línea, okay? Lo deben haber visto en álgebra 1. Si no se acuerdan de todo esto, está bien, eso es normal, ¿ok? Que sí deben recordarse por lo menos un poco es porque lo usamos mucho y lo vamos a usar hoy, el Slope-Intercept Form, que se escribe en esta forma, y igual a mx más b. El m representa el slope y la b representa el y-intercept. Eso significa donde la línea cruza el axis de Y, el número que está ahí. O cuando X es igual a 0, ¿qué valor tiene Y? Eso es el Y-intercept. ¿Okay? Así que este lo vamos a hacer hoy y también esta forma que se llama el Point Slope Form. Si no saben, no han visto esto antes, está bien, ahora se lo enseño, pero lo único que tienen que saber por ahora es que el slope, que es la M, se escribe aquí, y x1 y y1 es los coordinados de un punto que está en la línea. Ahora le enseño cómo se hace, cómo se usa. Alright, so look, here's our first example of what you're going to have on the homework. It says, write the equation of each line in slope-intercept form. Tenemos que escribir la ecuación de cada línea en slope-intercept form. They want us to write the equation of a line that's parallel to y equals 5x plus 1. Let's stop right there 1 second. We just learned that if lines are parallel, what has to be true? If lines are parallel, their slopes have to be the same. If lines are parallel, their slopes have to be the same. Notice that the equation of this line is in what form? Slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. When it's in slope-intercept form, this number right here is the slope. That means that the slope of the line that's parallel to this one will also be 5. Let me repeat the directions again and look at this again. We got to write the equation of each line in slope-intercept form. We got to write the equation of the line that they're describing here. The line that they're describing is a line that is parallel to this line and that passes through this point. So if it's parallel to this line, that means that it's going to have the same slope. The slope is 5. Okay, now let me explain something important. Excuse me. Alright, so when you're doing the homework, all the examples, if you get it wrong or if you ask the software program for an explanation, they're going to explain everything using point slope form. So let me do it that way first, and after that I'll show you how you could do it in slope-intercept form. Alright, so let me do it first in point slope form. Okay, lo voy a explicar de dos maneras diferentes. Primero lo voy a explicar usando point slope form, porque es como te lo explica el libro y cuando hacen la tarea, si lo cogen mal o piden una explicación, te lo va a explicar en esta forma. Déjame hacerlo de esta manera primero. Alright, so point slope form is this. You know what? Let me write it. Darn it. Hold on. Sorry. Point. Let me do this. Point. You'll see what I'm doing in 1 second. Let me just change colors. Alright, the reason I put it in blue is everything I put in blue, you got to replace with numbers. So you got to put a number there, a number here, and a number here. Alright? Todo lo que escribí en azul se tiene que sustituir con un número que le voy a enseñar ahora. Okay, so a line parallel to this line, they got to have the same slope. Since this is in slope-intercept form, that means that the slope is 5. El slope de esta línea es 5 porque está en slope-intercept form. So that means that right here, I'm going to put the number 5. Okay, now look, it passes through this point. Okay, so all I'm going to do is substitute that point for x1 and y1. Ok, como está pasando por este punto, lo voy a sustituir ese punto para x1, y1. Alright, so when I substitute that, the y1 goes here, the x1 goes here. Give me 1 second to fill out the rest with a color, a different color. Alright, before you panic, because I can just imagine some of you already freaking out. All I did is this. The slope is 5. I substitute the 5 where the m goes. Okay? And the point that is passing through is -1, 2. Alright? And I'm just substituting -1 where x1 is and +2 where y1 is. Where x1 is, I put -1. However, because it says -1 and there's a minus sign here, I gotta separate them with a parentheses, which I'll simplify in 1 second. And where y1 is, I put +2. Okay? Lo único que hice es, donde está la m, puse el número 5 porque el slope tiene que ser igual que esta línea. Donde está x1, sustituí -1, porque eso es lo que estoy haciendo aquí. x1 va a ser -1 y y1 va a ser +2. Ahora voy a simplificar esto. Alright, let me simplify that real quick. These two negatives become a positive. Alright? Estos dos negativos se cambian a un positivo. So this is going to become this. Maybe using all these different colors was a mistake, but whatever. I'll leave it for now. Alright, so those two negatives became a positive. Okay, esos dos negativos te dan un positivo. Okay, now look. They want us to put the answer in slope-intercept form. So to put it in slope-intercept form, I got to move the pieces around so that it'll be in y equals mx plus b form. Alright, so that means I got to get y by itself. In order to be in this form, y is by itself. Everything else is on the other side. Ellos quieren la respuesta en slope-intercept form, que es esta forma. En slope-intercept form, y está sola en un lado de la ecuación y se pone todo lo demás al otro lado. Alright, so how am I going to do that? First thing I'm going to do is the distributive property. 5 times everything that's inside the parentheses. And that's going to give me this. Now my last step is I'm going to move the -2 to the right by adding 2 to both sides. And that is my answer. And you know what? I said I was going to show you 2 ways to do it, but forget it. I'm just going to show you this way, because if I show you the 2 ways, the video is going to be way longer. And let's just keep it simple. This way is not that difficult, all right? So I don't want to overcomplicate it. Let's just leave it with this one way, okay? En lugar de enseñarle 2 maneras, solamente le voy a enseñar esta manera, porque así lo enseña el libro, y para no hacer el video demasiado largo y confundir a algunos estudiantes, lo voy a hacer solamente de esta manera. Alright, let's do another example. Otro ejemplo. Alright, same exact type of question, right? The line parallel to this line. Okay, so this line right here is in slope-intercept form. Está esto en slope-intercept form. So the slope is negative 3. El slope es negativo 3. And it passes through this point. So I'm going to make that point x1, y1. Okay, now we got a little fill in the blank here. Parallel lines have blank slopes, equal slopes. Las líneas paralelas tienen slopes que son iguales. Iguales. So the slope of the required line is negative 3. Now use point slope form. Okay, so I'm going to substitute this number for m and these numbers for x1, y1. So I'm going to put here negative 3. x1 is 9 and y1 is negative 6. You're supposed to put that in parentheses if you have those two signs next to each other. Alright, so these two negatives become a positive. Estos dos negativos se cambian a este positivo. Okay, and when you do the distributive property here, negative 3 times x and negative 3 times negative 9, you're going to get negative 3x, and then negative 3 times negative 9 is positive 27. Okay, now when you move the 6 to the right and subtract it from 27, you're going to get y equals negative 3x plus 21. The equation of the line is y equals negative 3x plus 21. Alright, let's do another example here. It says, same thing, write the equation of each line in slope-intercept form. Alright, so, okay, I'm going to start with number 5, because in number 4, I don't like that they threw a curveball at you guys. Alright, I'll explain it, just in case it's on the homework. Alright, but let's look at number 5 first. Voy a hacer el número 5 primero, porque aquí hay algo un poquito extraño que le quiero explicar. Alright, so the line parallel to this one. So once again, the slope has to be this number, because this is in slope-intercept form. So the slope, if the line is parallel, the slope has to be 3 over 2. Si la línea es paralelo, el slope tiene que ser igual, 3 sobre 2. Okay, and it passes through this point. Whoops. It passes through this point, so this is going to be x1, y1. So the point slope formula, let me write it here. Point slope is that equals alright, so when I substitute those values, I'm going to have y minus 0 equals 3 over 2 x minus negative 4. Okay, so y minus 0 is y, so I could just get rid of that minus 0 and just write it like that, alright? 3 over 2 parentheses x, those two negatives become a positive. Okay, now it's actually almost in slope-intercept form already. The only thing left to do is the distributive property. Okay, so when I multiply, I'm going to have y equals 3 over 2x. Now look, the easy way of multiplying 3 over 2 times 4, let me show you over here, 3 over 2 times 4. Alright, if you're good at math already, you could just do 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 2 times 3 is 6. But for the people that struggle with that stuff, let me just do it the slow way. The slow way is you multiply the numerator times the numerator, and the denominator times the denominator. In other words, the top times the top and the bottom times the bottom. 12 over 2, which equals 6. So 3 over 2 times 4 equals 6. And that's my answer. Ok, así que para multiplicar 3 sobre 2 por 4, aquí le enseñé cómo. Si lo saben hacer bien, más rápido hubiera sido 4 dividido por 2 te da 2 y 2 por 3 es 6. Si no entienden eso, háganlo de la manera despacita, porque ahora no tengo tiempo para explicar eso. Alright, I'm going to erase this so we can look at number 4. Alright, look at number 4. Let me show you the key in figuring this out, alright? Believe it or not, y equals negative x is written in slope-intercept form. this is in slope-intercept form. Let me show you how. Slope-intercept form is this. Right? Esta ecuación está escrito en slope-intercept form. Le voy a enseñar cómo. Alright, look. Y equals negative x. That's what they gave us, right? So what number is back here? I'll tell you what number is back here. Plus 0. That's why it's not written. There's nothing written back there because the y-intercept is 0. If it's plus 0, you don't write it because anything plus 0 stays the same. So you don't write the plus 0. Okay, how about this? What's the slope? There's an invisible 1 here. The slope is negative 1. Alright, so you got to realize that if it says y equals negative x, there's a 1 in front of the x. So the slope is negative 1. El slope es negativo 1. No había nada escrito aquí atrás. Eso quiere decir que el y-intercept es más 0. ¿Ok? Que no se escribe porque cuando uno suma 0 te da el mismo número. Así que no es necesario escribirlo si está simplificado. ¿Ok? Así que esto me enseña que el slope es negativo 1. Porque si dice negativo x, he entendido que hay un 1 invisible al frente del x. Alright, so the slope is negative 1. The slope is negative 1. And it passes through this point. So this is going to be x1, y1. So a line parallel to that. Alright, in point slope form. Sorry, blanked out. Alright, so when I substitute these numbers, I'm going to have y minus 2.5 equals negative 1, x minus 5. Okay, on the right hand side, I'm going to do the distributive property. La propiedad distributiva right here. And it's going to give me negative 1x. I'm not going to write the 1. Plus 5. Okay, now I got to move the minus 2.5 to the right by adding 2.5 to both sides. Remember, when you're adding with decimals, you got to line up the decimals. There's an invisible decimal point right there. Alright, so y equals negative x plus 7.5. That's the equation in slope-intercept form. Okay, my slope is negative 1 and my y-intercept is 7.5. Okay, ahí está la ecuación en slope-intercept form. El slope es negativo 1, igual que en este. Y el y-intercept es 7.5. Okay, listen, I have more examples here, but for the sake of not making this video an hour long, I'm just going to put the... I'm debating, should I do it? You know what, let me knock them out real quick. Let me see. If anything, I could always change my mind and go back and erase this part, but I'll probably leave it. Alright, so look, the slope is negative 3. I'll try to do them fast. Alright, so in point slope form, it's going to be y, and that's the slope, and this is x1, y1. Okay, lo voy a hacer rápido este ejemplo. Alright, so y minus 0 equals negative 3x minus 9. Look how fast. Now just distribute, and y minus 0 is y. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times negative 9 is positive 27. Boom. Done. Alright, let's do this one now, okay? The slope is 0.6 because it's already in slope-intercept form. And this is x1, y1. So again, here's point slope form. Let me go like this. Alright, so alright, y minus 2 equals 0.6 parentheses x minus negative 2. Alright, so y minus 2 equals 0.6 parentheses. Those two negatives become a positive. Now I got to do the distributive property on the right. So y minus 2 equals 0.6 times x is 0.6x. 0.6 times 2 is going to be 1.2. Alright? 2 times 6 is 12. Alright? And you got to have that one digit after the decimal point. Okay, last step is I got to move the minus 2 to the right by adding 2 to both sides. Remember, you got to line up the decimal points, and 2 is a whole number, so the decimal point is behind the 2. So y equals 0.6x plus 3.2. Last one. Oh no, fractions. Everybody panic. Sarcasm. Alright, so, okay, one thing I want to point out on this one is that notice that, I mean, I guess it's not a big deal, but notice that it's not written exactly in slope-intercept form. Notice that. I'm going to erase all this stuff to make space because I feel cramped there. Alright? But, okay, fíjense que aquí esto no está escrito en slope-intercept form. It's not a big deal because when you do the distributive property so that this will be in slope-intercept form, you're going to get the same number that's there. It's still 5. So I don't know why they did that, really. They made us do like one more silly step. But whatever. Okay. Cuando se multiplica el 5 por lo que está dentro del paréntesis, ahora sí está en slope-intercept form, pero sigue siendo el 5. Así que no sé para qué hicieron eso. Anyways, let me erase that real quick. Okay, we know that the slope is 5. And it's passing through this point. So this is x1 and y1. Alright? Alright, so here's my point slope form. So when I substitute those values, I'm going to have y minus negative 1/2 equals 5 parentheses x minus 1/2. Okay, now these two negatives are going to become a positive. Alright? I'm going to do the distributive property on the right, la propiedad distributiva. Alright, I'm going to get 5x minus 5 over 2. Mister, how do you multiply fractions? 5 times negative 1/2. Turn the 5 into a fraction by putting a 1 on the bottom. Multiply the top times the top, el de arriba por el de arriba, and the bottom times the bottom. There you go, kids, magic. Alright? So now I got this, okay? Now my last step is to move that 1/2 to the right by subtracting 1/2. Alright, so subtract 1/2. But mister, how am I going to subtract that? Those are fractions. Alright, so y equals 5x. Alright, let's talk about this part. Let me use a different color so it's easier to see. Alright, so look. Before I subtract that, let me do a real quick example of something, okay? Antes de restar esto, déjame explicarle algo bien rápido. Just a quick recap on how I'm making up a separate example real quick, alright? Here's a separate example. Esto es un ejemplo diferente bien rápido. If I got that, right? Negative 5 minus 2 on a number line. Whenever you subtract 2, if I'm at this number and I subtract 2, I got to go 2 numbers to the left, right? Si yo estoy en este número y le resto 2, tengo que ir 2 números a la izquierda. But if we're in the negative numbers, they're going like this. En los números negativos, los números van así. Alright, so negative 5 minus 2 equals negative 7. Why did I do that example? To show you that when you have a negative number and you subtract a number from it, let me say that again. When you have a negative number and you subtract a positive number from it, okay, you're going to end up adding the two numbers together and it stays negative. So like a negative number minus a number equals negative sign and you add the two numbers. Okay, now, let me say that in Spanish real quick. Hice este ejemplo sencillo para enseñarle que cuando tienen un número negativo y le restan un número positivo, porque negativo 5 menos 2 es positivo. Okay, la respuesta sería negativo y se suman los dos números para coger la respuesta. Sí estamos restando, pero así es como se hace la calculación. Alright? Ahora voy a hacer lo mismo, pero con estos dos números. Alright, so I got, now I'm going to do this part right here. Negative 5 over 2 minus 1 over 2 equals, alright, so just like in this example, the answer is going to be negative. When you're adding or subtracting fractions, the denominator stays the same. Cuando están sumando o restando fracciones, el denominador se mantiene igual. I'm only going to do the top part. Okay, negative 5 minus 1 is negative 6. Alright, so that's my answer, but I could simplify that. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. So that's my final answer. Listen, I know how a lot of you guys think. If you're whining that that's too much work, stop being lame. You're in high school. Alright? That's not too much work. One day you're going to have a real job and you're going to realize what's too much work is. Alright? That's just doing a couple little number tricks. Get with it, man. Step it up. Step up your game. Stop being weak and lame. You're in high school and you need to start putting in the work, because life is only going to get harder. I'm sorry to tell you. From here on out, it only gets harder. Alright. As the kids like to say, no cap. Alright, let me move on. Alright. Okay, so now let's talk about perpendicular lines, alright? We're believe it or not, we're near the end. Or at least at the halfway point. Okay? So we already went over that when lines are parallel, their slopes are the same. Now, when lines are perpendicular, they have a different relationship. When lines are perpendicular, the slopes of perpendicular lines will always have the opposite signs and will always be the reciprocals of each other. What, mister? What does that mean? Look right here, kids. Okay? This is what I mean. If two lines are perpendicular, and one of them has a slope of 2 over 3, the other one, instead of being positive, will be negative. And instead of being 2 over 3, it'll be the reciprocal. The reciprocal means flip it upside down. So if one is positive, the other one has to be negative. And they both got to be the reciprocal of each other. Okay, so look at this one, same thing. If one of them is positive, the other one has to be negative. And they both got to be the reciprocal of each other. Same thing here. If one of them is negative, the other one has to be positive. If this one's 1 over 4, then this one's 4 over 1. But when you simplify 4 over 1, you get 4. Okay? And another special thing about their relationship is that the product of their slopes will always equal negative 1. If you multiply this fraction times this fraction, you're going to get negative 6 over 6, which when you simplify it equals negative 1. If you multiply this fraction times this fraction, you're going to get negative 20 over negative 20, which when you simplify it will equal negative 1. If you multiply this one times this one, you're going to get negative 4 over 4, which when you simplify it will equal negative 1. Okay? Let me show you in these two examples what I mean. These two lines should be perpendicular. I hope they're perpendicular. Let's check. Alright, I'm going to get the slope of this line that's going down first by using, let's use these 2 points right here. Alright, so the rise is 1 and the run is 1, 2, 3. So the slope of this line is, negative 1 over 3. Now let's do this line that's going up, okay? So the slope of this one, first of all, it has to be positive because it's going up. Now let me pick 2 points. How about this one and this one? The rise is going to be 1, 2, 3. And the run is going to be 1. So the slope is positive 3 over 1, which when you simplify it is 3. So yeah, that works out. That's correct. That's exactly what this says. They're opposite signs and they're the reciprocal of each other. Alright, now let me do this one. Okay, let's do the line that's going up first. I could use this point right here and this point right here. Alright, so the slope of this line is going to be positive. The rise is 1, 2, 3, 4. The run is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the slope is positive 4 over 5 for this line right here. For the one that's going down, let me see what, I could use this point and this point. Alright, so, oh, these are not perpendicular. I should not have picked this example, but whatever. I'm going to continue going forward. Okay, so the rise is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, the rise is 4 and the run is only 1. So these two are not perpendicular. I made a bad decision picking that one. I'm just going to leave it for now. No, I'm going to have to erase this. Give me 1 second. Alright guys, I switched example 2 to one that is perpendicular. Alright, so let's go over this example 2. Cambié el segundo ejemplo porque el que tenía ahí primero no era perpendicular. All right, so on example 2, all right, let me see. Yeah, let's use these 2 points. So on this one that's going down, if I use these 2 points, the rise is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the run is going to be 1, 2, 3. Okay, so for this one, the slope is going to be negative 6 over 3. Okay, which when you simplify it is going to be negative 2. All right, so the slope is negative 2. And for the blue line, if I use, all right, so just to erase this, the slope is negative 6 over 3, which is negative 2. All right. Okay, for the blue line, if I use this dot and this one, the rise is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so the rise is going to be positive 4, and the run was 8. This was 4, and this was 8. All right. Now, when I simplify that, I'm going to get positive 1/2. Positive 1/2, okay, for the blue line, that's the opposite sign of this one. This one's negative, this one's positive, and it's the reciprocal of 2, because 2 over 1, if I change the 2 into a fraction, I get 2 over 1. So this one is 1/2. Alright, so there you have examples of perpendicular lines, okay? Let me just repeat that really fast in Spanish. Okay, los slopes de líneas perpendiculares siempre tienen los signos opuestos y son el recíproco del otro. Por ejemplo, si el slope de una línea es 2 sobre 3, el slope de una línea perpendicular sería el signo opuesto. Este era positivo, así que este es negativo. Y el recíproco quiere decir poner la fracción al revés. Así que como este es 2 sobre 3, este sería 3 sobre 2. Negativo 3 sobre 2. Si uno tiene 5 sobre 4, el otro tendría que ser negativo 4 sobre 5. Si uno es negativo 1 sobre 4, el otro tiene que ser positivo 4 sobre 1, que cuando se simplifica te da 4. ¿Ok? Y aquí tenemos 2 ejemplos de líneas perpendiculares y estaba enseñando los slopes como salen. ¿Ok? Que enseñan que son el recíproco uno del otro y los signos opuestos. También el producto de los slopes siempre te tiene que dar negativo 1. Así que si yo multiplico estos dos números, estas dos fracciones, me tiene que dar negativo 1. Esta fracción por esta fracción me daría negativo 6 sobre 6, que cuando se simplifica te da negativo 1. Esta por esta sería negativo 20 sobre 20, que cuando se simplifica te da negativo 1. Y esta por esta sería negativo 4 sobre 4, que te da también negativo 1. Alright, let's look at the first example. Okay, this is exactly what we did before, but now with perpendicular lines. Lo mismo que hicimos antes, pero con líneas perpendiculares. Alright, so a line perpendicular to this line. This is in slope-intercept form. So that means that the slope of this line is 4. So the slope of a line perpendicular to that one has to be negative 1 over 4. And this is going to be x1, y1. Si el slope de esta línea es 4, la línea perpendicular tiene que tener un slope de negativo 1 sobre 4. Alright, so this is my point slope form. So when I substitute the numbers, I'm going to have y minus negative 1 equals I'm just plugging in these numbers and the m. So that'll be y plus 1 equals, let me distribute. When I distribute, I'm going to have negative 1 over 4 x plus 3 over 4. Okay, now the last step is to move the plus 1 to the right by subtracting 1. Okay, and if you don't know how to subtract that, look at the easy way to subtract that. Okay, to subtract fractions, they gotta have the same denominator. If I change this 1 into a fraction, I put a 1 on the bottom. Okay, but if I want to change it to a fraction that has a 4 on the bottom, just multiply the top and the bottom by 4. So in other words, 3 over 4 minus 4 over 4. That's what I'm going to do. 3 over 4 minus 4 over 4. Why 4 over 4? What does 4 over 4 equal? 1. So 3 over 4 minus 1 is the same as 3 over 4 minus 4 over 4. Okay, 3 sobre 4 menos 1 es igual que 3 sobre 4 menos 4 sobre 4. Alright, so when I do that, that's going to give me my final answer, which is negative 3 minus 4 is negative 1, and I keep the 4 on the bottom. Alright, let me do another example. The line perpendicular to this one, okay, that passes through these points. The product of the slopes of perpendicular lines is negative 1. The product is always negative 1. So the slope of the required line is the reciprocal of this one with the opposite sign. So it would be positive 5 over 2. Alright, now I substitute the numbers. This one's x1 and y1. So y minus negative 8. Five over 2 is the slope, and x minus negative 6. Alright, so that's going to be y plus 8, 5 over 2x. I don't like the way they wrote this at all, but they didn't put the parentheses here. Alright, let me just do this. Parentheses. And this will be plus 6. Okay, now when you do... My bad. Hold on. They kind of skipped a step here. That's why I got confused. Hold on. Let me write it over here. Y plus 8 equals, alright, 5 over 2 x plus 6. They skipped a step, and I wasn't sure what they wanted me to write. Okay, so y plus 8 equals, okay, I'm going to do the distributive property. And I'm going to get 5 over 2 x plus 5 times 6 is 30. And 30 divided by 2 is 15. For the people that still don't know how to do fractions because you didn't pay attention in middle school like you should have, 5 times 6 is 30. Low-key dissing some of you guys. There you go. Okay? Now I'm going to move the 8 to the right by subtracting 8. Y equals 5 over 2x. 15 minus 8 is 7. Alright? Guys, I'm going to do these two examples and then I'm going to call it a lesson because this video is taking long. Alright, so the line perpendicular to this one, right? So the slope of this line is 3 over 2. So the slope of a perpendicular line has to be negative. So the slope of a line perpendicular to this one has to be negative 2 over 3. And this is x1, y1. Alright, so point slope form is y minus y1 equals m x minus x1. I substitute the values and I'm going to have y minus negative 1 okay, and x minus 3. It's so awesome how they keep putting fractions here, huh? Okay, so now a little sarcasm. Alright, so y plus 1 equals, I'm going to do the distributive property, negative 2 over 3x plus a negative times a negative is a positive. Look, mental math, 2 times 3 is 6. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Alright, now move the 1 to the right by subtracting. Y equals negative 2 over 3x plus 1. Alright, so the line perpendicular to this line, right? That line is in slope-intercept form like we went over earlier with that other example. It's just that the slope is negative 4 and the y-intercept is 0, so they don't write it. But the slope, y equals negative 4. The slope is negative 4. Alright? So if the slope is negative 4, the slope of a line perpendicular to it has to be positive 1 over 4. Because negative 4 is this. So a line perpendicular has to be this, positive 1 over 4. And it's passing through x1, y1. This one will be quick and easy. So here's point slope form. Alright, when I plug in these values, it's going to say y minus 0 equals 1 over 4 x minus 0. So x minus 0 is x, and when I multiply 1 over 4 times x, basically the answer will be y equals 1 over 4 x. Let me see what's the next slide just in case. I mean, not that slide, I mean this one. You know what? I'm gonna just push myself and do these last 3 problems so nobody tells me that there aren't enough examples. Alright? So look, let's do these last 3 examples, okay? We're talking about lines that are perpendicular. Alright, so if the slope of this line is 10, the slope of the line perpendicular to it has to be negative 1 over 10. Alright, so here's my point slope form. Alright, this is going to be x1, y1. So when I plug them in, I'm going to have y minus negative 3 equals negative 1 over 10 x minus 1. Alright, so I start simplifying. Y plus 3 equals, when I distribute, I'm going to have negative 1 over 10 x plus 1 over 10. Now I got to move this 3 to the right by subtracting it. More fractions, yay! Alright, so 1 over 10 minus 3 over 1. Okay, I'm going to change. If you're bad at fractions, pay attention. Alright, I'm going to change the least common multiple of 10 and 1 is 10. So the top one, I'm going to leave it the same, but the bottom one, I'm going to change it to have a 10 on the bottom by multiplying the bottom times 10 and the top times 10. That's a 10. So I'm going to have 1 over 10 minus 30 over 10. Okay? It makes sense because negative 30 over 10, if you simplify it, you get negative 3. Negative 30 over 10, when you simplify it, you get negative 3. Okay, anyways, when I do 1 over 10 minus 30 over 10, okay, I'm going to get negative 29 over 10. Alright, so that's what this gives me, believe it or not. Y equals negative 1 over 10 x minus 29 over 10. If you're paying attention right now, you're a true cobra. Good job. Thanks for listening. Alright, let me erase that so I can do number 9. Alright, number 9. Okay, so if a line is perpendicular to this one, the slope would be positive 3. Positive 3 instead of negative 1 over 3. Okay, this will be x1, y1. Alright, so thank you. There's no fractions here. Wow, it's a miracle. So y minus y1 equals, alright, there's my point slope form. Now I'm going to substitute the values. Y minus 0 equals 3 parentheses x minus 12. Distribute, y minus 0 is y. Distribute on the right and you'll have 3x minus 36. That one was quick and easy. Alright, I'm done. Let's do the last one. I already see some weird stuff. Should I chicken out and just skip it? Nah, that's not my style, kids. Alright, look. I hate that they wrote it like that. Like, why do they gotta complicate my life? But look, just in case it shows up on the homework, that means the same thing as this. Alright, what they wrote there means the same thing as this. Lo que escribieron aquí en esa forma extraña quiere decir lo mismo que esto. Alright, so this way is way easier to understand. Alright, so please keep that in mind if it comes out in the homework. Si sale en la tarea, miren cómo se puede escribir para que sea más fácil de entender. Okay, so if a line is perpendicular to that one, let me write it over here so I can have plenty of space. The slope will be negative 3 over 5. Alright, and this is x1, y1. Alright, so once I plug it into the point slope formula, I'm going to have y minus 1 equals negative 3 over 5 x x minus 1. Okay, so now I'm going to do the distributive property on the right. Y minus 1 equals negative 3 over 5 x plus 3 over 5. Now I'm going to move the minus 1 to the right by doing plus 1. Look guys, look at how you should do this. That's real easy. When you're dealing with a number like 1, I could just change it to 5 over 5. Mister, where'd the 5 over 5 come from? Guys, all I did is get this denominator and put it on the top and on the bottom. Why did I do that? Because when you add or subtract fractions, I already know that they got to have the same denominator. So if you're trying to change 1 to a fraction and you want the denominator to be a 5, just put the same number on the top. Because 5 divided by 5 equals 1. Alright? So y equals negative 3 over 5x plus 3 over 5 plus 5 over 5 equals 8 over 5. ¿Ok? El 1 lo cambié para una fracción y escribí 5 sobre 5. ¿Por qué? Porque para sumar o restar fracciones tenemos que tener el mismo denominador. Así que como yo sé que el denominador tiene que ser 5, si estamos convirtiendo 1 a una fracción que tiene 5 abajo, simplemente se pone el mismo número arriba. Porque 5 dividido por 5 es 1. Así que eso se puede hacer bien fácil. Si el denominador hubiera sido, vamos a decir, 6, hubiera escrito 6 sobre 6. Si era 7, escribo 7 sobre 7. No es difícil. Alright, in the back here will be all the answers. They wrote it in the same weird form, but do it my way. Alright? I already forgot what answer I got for this one. Hopefully it was the same thing. Guys, that's the end of this lesson. The homework is in the student portal. It's due by 6 a.m. the next day that you have my class. Please make sure to do it. Don't wimp out. Make sure to do the homework, alright? La tarea está en el portal de estudiante y lo tienen que entregar antes de las 6 de la mañana el próximo día que tengan mi clase.